Okay. There was one question that we have received, and it involved if they had to run the FBI checks every 2 years, I believe. And from what my understanding of that is that you do not have to run those FBI checks more than once. Nora, is that correct? Or Hudson, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Let me check the chat box.
If they have not previously had an FBI check, then yes, they need to have an FBI check, even if they are an existing employee. But if they have previously had an FBI check in your employ, then they do not need another FBI check at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Hudson. Thank you. Thank you. And if you have any additional questions, just please add it to the chat room and we'll try to get to those questions. All right, so the next bill that was passed is Act 673. Looks like House Bill 1797. This legislative act prohibits corporal punishment for all placement and residential licenses. We really didn't have a lot of issues with corporal punishment specifically, but I do want to commend Tanya Williams for pushing it through legislation so that it can be just out there to everyone. So no corporal punishment is allowed for any of the licenses. Any questions on that? Okay. Act 772, Senate Bill 466. This is specific to psychiatric residential treatment facilities. So one, it requires all newly licensed providers to obtain a permit from the Health Services Permit Agency, regardless of in-state or out-of-state clients. Two, it requires existing licensees to obtain a permit from the Health Services Permit Agency for capacity beyond the current approved capacity for both in and out-of-state clients. And then three, there's a third caveat for this. So it allows the Child Welfare Agency Review Board to close or terminate a license that has been operational for the past 12 months. I think there was a question concerning that third caveat, and I'm not sure if any of the attorneys can answer this. So is it definite? With those agencies, those that are inactive, are they still able to request inactive status, or is it just automatic for them to close or terminate that license? So that question was brought up. I'm not sure if any of the attorneys can answer that now, but if not, we can get back with an answer on that.
Hey, Ebony, it's Michelle Bridgespell here,
Okay.
attorney for DCC. Based on the language of the statute, it does say shall, which means that it just has to be done. So if they have been inactive for 12 months, they shall be terminated. So DCC will just have to determine a timeline and then do a review to see which ones fall into that category, and then they will be effectively terminated.
Thank you, Michelle, for that information. There's a question in the box. The foster parent support system, FFSS, typically on hand, hold on, y'all. Typically on HAD state child maltreatment and traffic violation check runs. This new legislation means they will all need fingerprinted federal background ran. Oh, okay, let me read that again. Okay, Megan, are you on here?
Ebony, the simple answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
They will require FBI checks because they fall under that ACA 928-409, and everybody under 928-409 now is required to have an FBI background check.
Thank you. Thank you. I had to put my glasses on. All righty. So was there any other discussion concerning Act 772? It was specific to the psychiatric residential treatment facilities and the ability for the Child Welfare Board to terminate licenses that have been not been operational for the past 12 months. Okay. So hopefully I'm working on getting all of this information entered into a letter for all of the providers. And I'll get this information sent out to all of you once it is approved. And hopefully that'll be very soon. So for open discussion, and I'm seeing a lot of this with a lot of our providers. And this is just anybody with any feedback, if you can help us out with this. So what can you do when the staff culture at your agency is hindering the treatment or the programming? So for an example, what we see at some agency is that if you're in a really small community, we're finding that a lot of staff are either related to each other somewhere, grew up together, are best friends, and they typically have their own way of thinking or their own beliefs that may not be in line with what your agency has created. So if you've had any issues about that, has there been anything to help you kind of turn that situation around or correct that issue? Does anybody have any suggestions on that?
Hold them accountable to the program that you have. That's all you can do. And replace their brain with another brain might be helpful. Other than that, that's all I got.
Well, I don't know how you can replace the brain, but
Well, you never know. You just never know what we can do up in Northeast Arkansas. No, I'm just
so
kidding.
are you guys finding that your staff trainings or your debriefings, and I don't know how often you all meet with them, is any of that working for your staff when you're continuously offering any trainings or meeting with them on a regular basis? Has anybody found any success with that?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Ms. Ebony, this is Carla in Forest City. Can you hear me? Okay, we have just, like the question that you did ask, I think consistency is the rule of the game, especially when you're making changes. So we've just been trying to keep the staff involved with any upcoming trainings and making it mandatory that they participate. So we've getting a lot of turnout and a lot of feedback off of that. So I think that's just it. If they don't want to comply, then we do have policies in place for that. But we're making it mandatory that they attend these trainings so that we can be consistent with everything else and meeting those guidelines.
Thank you, Ms. Carla.
Oh, you're welcome.
So as far as recruitment for your staff, what does that look like for some of you all? Is it just anybody who applies, or are you targeting any audience as far as like those with some experience or those with some higher education? Or are you looking for a certain age group? Can anybody kind of talk a little bit about that? As far as your recruiting ways or ideas?
Hi, this is Renessa from Piney. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we are doing many different things to recruit staff. I know that we're doing interviewing within 1 to 2 days of application. We're also trying to recruit through the local university here. We are also going to be setting up a sign for open interviews. We don't just hire anybody who interviews. There's a process where they meet with typically either the assistant director of nursing or the director of nursing or the program manager to try to make sure that they're a good fit for the facility.
Thank you,
We
Renessa.
also, oh, no problem. We've also done things like posting at the universities, posting at PRN staffing where nurses are staffed by scrubs. So we're trying to really think outside of the box to attract the appropriate staff for the clientele here.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ebony, I see some questions in the chat box.
Go ahead.
I see a question from Ronissa saying that if we have a POA and non-POA beds already, we do not need a health service permit, or do we need it for the non-POA?
Hey, Ebony, this is Michelle Bridges-Bell again. Regarding that question, I'd like to review that legislation again before giving a firm answer on that. That legislation was a little bit confusing, and I don't want to say anything today that would further confuse the issue. So if we could address that question via email or via a provider letter, I think that would be the best way to handle that moving forward.
Thank you, Michelle. And again, hopefully we can get this provider letter out to y'all as soon as possible. So any questions that you may have concerning the regulatory checks, if you could enter them in the chat box or just send me an email and we'll be sure to address it. Okay. So let's talk about any concerns that you all are having. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you're ready to discuss or think something needs to be addressed, please do so. And we'll try to help you out with it as much as we can, either if it's concerning PRLU itself or just a regulation that you may not understand. Please share or put it in a chat box. If you have none, then I think we're doing good for Thursday. Okay. So I did want to let you all know that we are currently working through promulgation for the minimum licensing standards. So what that means is that sometime during the next quarter, the beginning quarter of 2022, there should be some new minimum licensing standard booklets issued out to you all. So hopefully if everything stays on track, those promulgated rules will be added to the MLS booklets and we will get those issued out to everyone. So before we end on a positive note, if anyone could answer, what has your agency successfully accomplished over the summer? So we know some agencies did not have school during the summer. Some did continue with school, but has anybody had any successes over the summer with your youth? No one has any successes. Okay. Well, if nothing tragic happened, I guess we'll take that as a success. So go ahead, Mary Beth.
had a girl that turned 18 and we were able to gather funds and get her a car. She's Apple agent. It was really good blessing.
We're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we have a foster child that turned 18 that was Apple, and we were able to bless her with a car. Our agency rounded that up for her, so that was a really good thing that happened this summer.
That is fantastic. That's so good. So good to hear. So with your youth,
I
go
was gonna
ahead,
say,
Erica.
one success that we had is we've had 4 of our teenagers be able to work all summer long and save money to get a car. So I consider that a big success. None of them's got fired. It's been a lot of life experience for them. So that's what we try to gear all the ones that, reach that certain, 15, 16, we start trying to support them getting a job and, saving up, that we make them save majority of their money. They're required to, for something important.
Very good. And I think that's great that you guys are continuing to teach them life lessons, because ultimately that's the goal. We want them to be able to grow up and be successful citizens, or just good people in general with, life skills. So whenever they can get that, I think that it's a great thing that you're doing. So thank you very much, Mary Beth and Erica. I did want to acknowledge. I think somebody was going to say something.
Yes. Hi, this is Anton from Perimeter Behavioral Forest City.
Mhm.
We also have done a CHAMP summer reading program, and we partnered with Freedom School out of Jackson, Tennessee, and we're going to eventually be a part of their program. But we had a very large success with our summer reading program. And a lot of our kids who go through different treatment programs and residential programs who don't have those core reading skills, we've seen a lot of boosting self-esteem and a lot of successes with kids who not, our kids go through residential and the focus is treatment, but it does affect their self-esteem and their self-worth when they can, start reading and understand and starting to write. So we've had a great success with that.
Anton, this is Bridget. I actually was at Magic Springs on July 24th, and we saw the summer reading program kids there, and it was a lot of them. But we saw them with the Forest City shirts on, and we saw the buses. And they were well behaved. Yes. So good.
Yes.
Good job.
Hey.
Good job. Good job. Reading is it's essential, and I think that's outstanding that you guys are focusing on that. So great job, everyone, for all that you are doing for your youth at your facilities. Of course, you all know that down to the core, we know that all children want to know that they are either loved or know that someone cares for them in some type of way, because they've experienced some trauma somewhere that led them to being placed in a different situation. So thank you so much for everything that everyone is doing for your youth. Before we end, I did want to acknowledge, I did get an opportunity to travel up to Piney Ridge Treatment Center in Fayetteville in June. And at that time, they had made great gains at their facility. They were actively involving their youth in a student council. It appeared to be working really well. They created a game room and other honors room places for the youth. And it just appeared to be a totally different environment where the kids responded well to it. So I don't know why Vanessa didn't say anything, but that is a great summer accomplishment or progressive accomplishment made to their facility. So I did want to acknowledge them. So again, everyone, please keep up the good work that you're doing. All righty. So does anyone else have any questions?
No, but thank you for the shout out from.
Okay, I think there is. Okay, I'm gonna try to read this with my glasses on. A couple of questions in the chat box. Does the governor's emergency status suspend the requirement for the results of the fingerprints and background results, not processing them, on hold to be able to put people to work before we get results? And I'll pause to see if Michelle or Hudson need to respond later to that, or.
Can you repeat that question, Ebony?
Okay, and I may be reading, it's really rough, but it's in a chat box. Does the governor's emergency status suspend the requirement for the results of the fingerprints and background results, not processing them, on hold to be able to put people to work before we get results? And that's from Kelly DeStefano. I think I said that right.
Unless Hudson wants to jump in on that, that's something I would want to review further too.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm going to say it's unlikely to, but I haven't seen the actual language of it. So I would need to double check that. So that's something Michelle and I can collaborate on, and Ebony, you can put something out on that later.
Okay. And there's another question from Ms. Mary Beth. Does anyone know if the price for background checks be a flat rate of $36.25? Typically, our renewals for state costs is $22, but the option on the website does not give us the option to only run the state renewal. Is that a Nora question?
At this point, we're in the process of making a change. Right now, for some reason, it is set up where you have to run them together. You cannot run one without the other. But after we have read the legislative act, we're actually waiting on Ms. Pam to return so she can go ahead and make the final call with regards to this matter, to revert it back to the way it used to be. But that's a call that Ms. Pam has to make. So we're waiting on her to come back, and then she'll be able to answer this question for us.
Okay. So we'll try to follow up on that one as well, Ms. Mary Beth. So that is all that I have for today. Again, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for spending 30 minutes of your time with PRLU. Again, if you have any additional questions, please email me or your licensing specialist, and we'll try to get those answered for you as soon as we can. So again, thank you and have a great rest of the week.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ebony.